Welcome. Today I'm talking about queens and queen rearing and what are some of the equipment pieces that you may need and your choices in the matter when you get past just letting the bees build cells on the frame. So stick with me, get your equipment, and let's go. So if you've already split your hives, you've already reared queens if you didn't go buy a queen. So now you may want to make more than one queen. In this video, we're just going to show you a little bit about what it is I use, and there are some choices, but they're basically all the same in what you can and how to use the equipment. When I first started, I knew about grafting, but the Nicot had come out, and the Nicot is a no-touch system. It's a graftless system, and this is the Nicot box. There's one similar to like a G's Bees, I believe. In this particular system, you confine the queen in this box, and you confine her for about 3 days, sometimes more, and she's supposed to lay in each of these cells. These false cells are then backed up by queen cups, these cups, and these cups are removable. And this has always been one of the problems, is that they're not always so removable. Of course, I don't have any. Even when I was using it, I had to use like needle nose pliers. I don't know what that bug is. And then the theory is, and it works, you don't have to graft. After 3 days, you know that the eggs have hatched. They're in the cup, and you come over to your queen bar and just place it in. This is a really good system when you first start queen rearing, because you get to know the size that you want for grafting. And if you don't have really good eyes, this is another good system, but you still have to see that they've hatched. The eggs have hatched. Although I guess some people do put eggs in there, but then your whole timeline is off a little bit for when they're going to be capped. This system also has the problem of when you first put this in, you put it into the hive that you want to graft from or use the queen from, so that you can get the scent all over it. They should be cleaning out all of these cells, and then you confine her. Not all queens will lay in this confined cell. I've had queens lay that first night, and I've had queens just not lay in there. So as soon as they laid, the workers then ate them, and you just never get anything to put into your queen bar. So it's a good system, but there's always the trials and errors, and that's the thing about queen rearing, is that you have to find something that works for you consistently, and that's where grafting is pretty consistent. You can pull a frame or have your frame already ready, and you can know that you have your larva at hand. But this is a good system to get started. The top part of this here allows all the workers inside the box, but it doesn't allow the queen out. So in effect, it's the queen excluder. And sometimes they do fill it with nectar, which then you just have to clean it out or let them eat it. So the Nicot system. But the Nicot system is then where I got all of my equipment for my grafting. my grafting goes into queen bars. These are queen bars that we made. It's just a regular medium frame because all my equipment is medium. And when I talk about these parts are all sold separately on places like Man Lake and other equipment sellers. There's the cell receiver, the brown piece, the white piece is the piece that comes off and is removable, and the brown cell cup goes in. So these are the three main pieces of your queen bar. This piece is fastened. We used staples. It's fastened to the frame. Then you've got your white cup receiver and your brown cell cup that you graft into. I have 32 double bar, and you want it to come off so that you can manipulate your cells once they're built back into banks or until they're emerged. These cell cups, I believe, are meant to be used and thrown away. However, I don't do that. It's part of some knowledge that these cups are slightly bigger than the actual worker cells in honeycomb. And the workers need to add a rim of propolis into the cup, so they're really cleaning it and adding a liner. And I can reuse these cups a number of times, and then when they get too bad, I can actually wash them, put them back out, and the bees do not have a problem. I reuse cups and they still lay into them. So that's 3 parts of the system from the Nicot system, and even without using the Nicot actual box for the queen to lay into, you can graft into these cups. So that comes into what do I graft with. So when it comes to grafting, the actual tool that actually takes the larva out of the cell is important, because it's a matter of personal preference, but also it has to be gentle. It has to pull that larva out without harming it. And there's a few different tools that there's out in the market, and the Chinese grafting tool is one that's very interesting. It's got the plunger and this very fine tip that goes into the cell. Some people will actually sit this in warm water before they use it into the cell. It doesn't poke through the cell, and it kind of scoops, and then you plunge the larva off. These are fairly cheap. They're very easily to come by, and a lot of people learn with these and then stick to them. The other one is a German grafting tool, which I don't have, but it's a metal piece, and it looks almost like a clay tool, if you've ever seen some clay tools. And none of these have worked for me. They work to some extent, but again, you have to feel confident with it, and these, I never got that confidence. What I got the confidence with is a small brush, and this is a very, very tiny brush. This brush is my friend, and it's not only smooth to go into the cell cup, it's very gentle in the cell cup, even if it's white waxed. The larva comes off very gently. I don't have any problems with rolling larva. One time, or not one time, but one of the things you have to understand is that larvae actually breathe, and so if you flop that larva over, it can actually drown in the royal jelly, especially if it happens to be in a nice puddle. These are fairly cheap as well. They're at any art store and online now. And this has been my best grafting tool. Again, it's light in the hand. It doesn't scrape. It doesn't poke through anything. And when you are comfortable and with your tool that you're using, you're going to have a better graft. As long as you're pulling that right age larva, that will be the best thing for your grafting needs. And that's my tools. Grafting tools are besides the fact that it's got to mechanically do what you need it to do, it's more your personal preference. And after that, then we have to discuss how are you going to see that larva? How are you going to see that perfect C, not C shape, banana shape? Because once it's a C shape, it's almost too old. It's a little bit of a banana shape. So I use jeweler's glasses, and these will enable me to see right in, like as if I was 12 years old, right in and see the larva. And so it's a nice thing to have in your kit, and especially if you're like me, the sun really affects my sight. I like to graft in this full sun, but this will be even clearer with the light, and sometimes maybe your sight is funny. This will help it out. That or a really good pair of up-close kind of glasses. When you're grafting, the other thing, like I said with the sun, we're notorious in grafting in spring when there's rain and clouds and just crappy weather, and so a source of light. Now this source of light can be over here, can be on your head or right up in there. I've seen different people holding it right up. Try to figure out some way that's easy for you, but remember, whether it's the sun or a light source, and especially the light sources, even the LEDs can put out a lot of heat. It can dry out your larva. So have a towel to put over your grafting frame, the frame that you graft from, and then also have one that as you graft into each one, you can pull a little towel over, and that will keep it moist. The temperature isn't going to harm it. The heat's not going to harm it, the cold. It's the loss of moisture. And you could have the best graft of your life, but once she dried out, you know, it doesn't matter. They're not going to take it. So make sure you put a towel over these things, just damp, just something to keep it from like really flashing anything off. So how did you get your frame of larva? Well, you can go into your hives and know which hives you're going to take, but that entails with a lot of pulling of frames just prior to your graft. So a nice way is to have confined your queen not in the tiny little Nicot box, but on a whole frame and behind a queen excluder in the box. And you can put anywhere from 2-3 pieces of comb on one side and the rest of the colony over here, so that she can't lay in the totality of the hive. She has to lay on the open frame that you give her. So if you have the worker comb to slip in there, that's what's going to help you. You can then date your frame and go back, and within 3 days they're starting to hatch, and then you have your 12 to 24 hours to graft from there. But if you date it, then just 3 days later. Queens act funny even behind these. So I've had some just not want to lay, but again, that's the whole game of beekeeping, is getting these bugs to do what we want them to do. So once you have grafted, they are now being filled with royal jelly and growing, and in day 4 they're capped. And 7 days they have after capping to emerge. That's when your roller cage will come in handy. Also part of this whole Nicot set. The roller cage I then put over the queen cell, and that queen cell now has about 3 days before she emerges. In that next 3 days, that's when I need to be putting her, the new queen, the virgin cell, into either a Nuke box, 2-frame, a 4-frame, a mini, whatever it is you have. But if I, for some reason, don't get to that, or what we all know is that they can emerge early due to weather concerns and things like that, or maybe I was off a day, she can emerge into her cage and not go back out and kill all the rest of my cells. Nothing more daunting than going out thinking, woo, I just got 20 cells, and yeah, they're all been eaten down. And it happens. That's part of our learning curve. It's part of, yeah, that's why the schedule is super important. That's why you write it down, and rain or shine, you've got to go out and work on that queen builder, that queen cell or cage or whatever it is that's on your timeline to do. So you cage her this way. Also, you can leave her in a bank for a few days anyway until you get that nuke built, or you go to the nuke and you realize that that one didn't emerge and you have the one left in your bank. So these roller cages are also for shipping. These, once she's mated, or if I'm selling a virgin, you can put her in there with attendants. This is the secondary piece that goes in with the queen candy, and then there's a cap. And yes, all these pieces are sold separately. It can add up, but if you're going to do it, you know, get the small packages first, work your way up. And so let's see, what else? So this is all on the equipment. And you may have pockets full of cash and can buy the best equipment and throw away all the things you want to throw away and use it once, but you're not going to make good queen cells unless you have a good breeder queen that you've just picked. You're going to make sure that that larva isn't dried out, and that the hives that you choose to build your queen with have the proper nutrition. That means good honey stores, you've fed them, the population is full of young nurse bees that can feed the royal jelly that these girls need. Queens are fed on general about 1,600 times a day, and that's one of the reasons that you don't want to just go, you know, pulling cells and looking at them and putting them back. You interrupt that feeding pattern, and that stops a feeding. And you know, who knows which feeding is it that you want to interrupt? I don't want to interrupt any of them. So that was one of the reasons that Cloak did his cloak board, which is another topic altogether. But it's to stop any interruption of feeding, moving them from one builder down to the queen right builder, any type of loss of feeding 1,600 times a day. And I know that the nurse bees also check on larvae. So nurse bees also check on larvae thousands of times a day, so the queens are even that much more important. The one of the reasons, the main reason that I collect pollen in the flows is to use just for my queen rearing, because the pollen is so important. I will use substitute during queen rearing if needed, but I collect pollen so that it has all the nutrition of it. And that pollen can be just laid out into a frame, stuck on both sides of the grafting bar, and then I feed. Nutrition's super important, population's super important, and then who are you choosing as your breeder queen or your production queen, whichever you want to call it. Nutrition is super important. And not that you have to have these really long queens, but you do want that extra royal jelly just built up so that these girls can just feed as much as possible. So the next thing would be, okay, so you've got your queen cells, they're caged, and then you have to have your nuke boxes. Your nuke boxes can be anything from minis. This has the actual space of what would be 2 mediums, and I have double nukes. I have queen castle nukes 4, but a minimum I would say is definitely 2 frames, and I'm talking 2 medium frames. That's all I do. Medium frames are plenty for them, but they do grow out of it. Once they're bred, once they're mated, they will grow out really fast, so you have to say okay and then go back through, take a frame out, start either building new nukes with that or start building a colony and feeding it back to a nurse colony. So this is one of my favorite times of year that I like to get all my queen equipment ready. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and click the bell, and if you have any questions, put them down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next time, happy beekeeping.